Mayank Chhaya, who's written the first authorized biography of the Dalai Lama. Hi, Mayank. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about that journey.
It began as a newspaper assignment quite a while ago. To give you a bit of background, it happened because I was doing a cover story on the question of Tibetan refugees who are in India. And as part of that story, I had gone to interview him in McLeodganj, which is up north in Himachal Pradesh in India. And after the interview, I just casually asked him if I could write a book which is meant primarily for a novice, uninitiated readership. And he kind of laughed it off because there are enough people wanting to do a book like that. I left it at that. The cover story came out. I sent him a copy of my cover story and reminded again that I'm still interested in doing a book. And to my surprise, his office got back saying that to send us an outline. I sent an outline, and a day later I got an authorization. Now, I've tried to find out since why he chose me. He had a choice of major international authors. The only reason that they have given officially is because of my professional credentials. But I suspect it's little more in the sense that so much of what happens in the Dalai Lama's life is on intuition. So that's where it is.
So recently, the Dalai Lama has actually renounced his political powers. What does that mean for the future of Tibet?
That question has a bit of a background to it in the sense the Dalai Lama has been wanting to give up his political power for nearly 40 years. It's taken him that long because for that long he has been perhaps the only embodiment of the Tibetan cause, and he was conscious that if he disengaged, it could fall apart. He realizes now that the exiled community has acquired enough maturity to elect its own prime minister, which is what has happened. I mean, it has been happening for a while, but the prime minister who has just taken office, Lobsang Sangye, he is a Harvard scholar. He is the one who will now have all the political powers that the office of the Dalai Lama used to have. So it is a significant shift, but at the same time, the Dalai Lama still remains the overarching influence on the Tibetan cause. For Tibet, it's more a gesture which has an appeal which might go down in history rather than in the immediate future. That's how I see it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Dalai Lama's life and intuition, you spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
Do you have any little anecdotes that you could share with us?
I think this is something that I've talked about once in a while. This happened sometime in the late 90s or maybe early 2000. This was in Delhi at Lady Sri Ram College. It's a major college in Delhi, perhaps Delhi's most prestigious institution. And the Dalai Lama had a lecture there. There were about maybe 2,000 students. And it was under an open hall with an aluminum sort of roof on top. And it's a very picturesque scene. You have a black backdrop. Imagine a man wearing ochre robes swaying back and forth against that black background. It's almost like a flame that is going back and forth because I was at a distance. I wanted to see the whole impact. And suddenly he looks up, and the audience is wondering why he's looking up. And then he clarifies that when I last came to the Lady Sri Ram College, there was a family of pigeons. And I'm wondering whether it's still there. And almost as if on cue, 3 pigeons fluttered across the hall.
Wow.
And now it was nothing more than a happenstance as far as I was concerned. But I find that the Dalai Lama has a knack of getting into situations like that. Another anecdote that I remember is after interview, it doesn't concern him directly, but it puts a context to the man. After an interview, I was walking around the mountain on which he lives, and I see a Tibetan monk twirling his prayer wheel, and suddenly he stops and picks up, he sees a little insect which was crossing in front of him. So he stops, picks up a leaf, scoops up the insect and puts it aside. So I was curious, I said, why this insect? I mean, why this particular? So he looks at me and he says, because I saw it. That's the difference. And then he related it back to the Dalai Lama, saying that this is how the whole institution has grown. This is the way we Tibetan Buddhist monks look at life. So to me, it's an interesting spectrum to look at the whole subject.
So did you learn anything from the Dalai Lama that really woke up spiritually yourself?
I told him that I'm as enlightened as he is, except that he was chosen and I wasn't. I mean, it was half in jest, half seriously, but in terms of learning anything, I don't think so. I didn't go to learn anything. But as a journalist, it was a fascinating story to look at. And that's what the book tries to do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mayank.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Avaz, brought to you in part by Kingfisher Airlines.